Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest round of the Junior Saloon Car Championship's official series here, courtesy of Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. Tonight's action brought to you from the northwest of England and one of my personal favourite racetracks in the world. In fact, it is the Oulton Park Island Circuit. And as we get ever closer now to the conclusion of the championship, just a handful of races still to go, the championship standing still looking nice and tight, and I'm hoping for some close competition again here tonight. My name is Andy McEwen, here to talk you through all of the action, and once again a big thank you to everyone working on what has been a hugely successful series so far. The series organiser Mick Sutton, Scott Thorne, who is in charge of race direction and pedalling the safety car as and when needed, and of course to Tom O'Farrell, our broadcast director, for bringing us the lovely shots of the Oulton Park circuit, one of the most scenic but challenging racetracks in the United Kingdom, and I'm sure that our teenagers who are set to do battle around this place for 20 minutes twice tonight are going to be in for a real treat, but a real test as well. It takes us well and truly now into the second half of the season that began on the 23rd of February at the Silverstone International Circuit. We then travelled to Donington Park, to Brands Hatch, and a week ago to the northeast of England and the Croft circuit that certainly provided a unique challenge, a very different kind of racetrack to the ones that we have competed at so far this season. Jordan Taylor managing to come out of that with a double race victory when all was said and done. But we're looking to try and continue that here at Oulton Park before we head to Snetterton in a week's time. And it all concludes on the 6th April at the high-speed Super Bowl at Thruxton down in Hampshire. So in total, just 3 weeks of racing left, and as I said, championship standing still incredibly finely poised. As for what it is they're fighting for, well, it's not just the honour of becoming the first ever Junior Saloon Car Championship official eSeries champion, but there is also cash up for grabs. For third place in the championship, £100 will go to the third place driver. The runner-up driver will receive £200, and the champion gets a choice, the champion's prerogative of either £300 or an Optics 31.5-inch curved gaming monitor. So if you want the choice of the best prizes, the pick of the bunch, then you need to make sure you're at the top of the championship tables once we leave Thruxton come the end of the season. Well, who is looking good to perhaps take that main championship prize so far? Well, CJ Morgan has certainly had a very, very strong run in the championship so far and arrives here the best part of 30 points clear of Jordan Taylor. CJ Morgan 3 times a race winner. Jordan has also had 3 race victories but didn't race with us at the season opener at Silverstone. So actually Jordan Taylor's been the form of late, the JT Racing driver, but was always coming from one step back, if you like, because of the fact that he missed the opening round. He holds a very slender lead then for second place in the points over Riley Bishop, just 4 points between those two, second and third, with Alex Mostav and Lewis Stannard trying their best to stay in touch. Mostav very much still in touch, actually, the Chandler Motorsport driver, just 13 points off second place, and then there is that gap back to Lewis Stannard, who has Harley Connolly just 2 points behind him in sixth, Nathan Jensen, Levine Kishore, Luke Stintler, and James Sherrington completing the top 10. And as you can see, the further down the order you get, the more of those pesky penalty points start to pop up. It really does pay to stay out of trouble in this championship, to avoid driving standards penalties, because as finely poised as it is, particularly in the mid-group, any penalty points can really be detrimental. 19 drivers have scored points so far. We've got 16 of them, I believe, ready to do battle tonight here at Oulton Park, and another healthy grid and a competitive grid. And as I sort of predicted would be the case, the deeper into the season we go, the more competitive the championship becomes, because drivers get to grips with the cars a little bit better, drivers get to grips with each other a little bit better as well, and figure out exactly who their rivals are and how best to beat them. They're all learning, many of them having never really raced on a sim before this season, and they are all really having to work hard to get the better of those who perhaps had a little bit more experience. But the deeper into the championship we get, the more drivers now we're starting to see up there on the podium. Harley Connolly, for example, getting his first podium of the season a week ago at Croft, and we'll be looking to continue that momentum here tonight. One driver on the grid tonight who definitely has done a fair bit of sim racing, it must be said, in the past, is this man, Kyle Felvers, making his debut in the championship here tonight. Now, partly because he is such an experienced driver, he is running as a guest entry, so doesn't score points, but is here, we believe, for the remainder of the season, just to try and basically have some fun and prove himself against the other drivers. He is just about still within the age bracket, 14 to 16-year-olds competing in this Junior Saloon Car Championship eSeries, as would be the case for all junior formula here in the UK in the real world as well. But Kyle Felvers, as experienced a sim racer as he is, you could argue would be one of the favourites coming into tonight. That was a personal best qualifying lap that he just set, but it is still only good enough for 4th position, about a quarter of a second or so off the provisional pole time. It's going to be really interesting to see how Kyle gets on as he makes his competitive debut. And as I said, doesn't score points, so he's invisible as far as the end race results are concerned. If he were to win, for example, the driver who finishes second in the race would score the race-winning points, but Kyle still gets to have the glory of winning races or finishing on the podium, should he be able to do so. Another new name coming to us here tonight at the other end of the experience spectrum, very much though, is Hayden Gray. Hayden Gray has done absolutely no sim racing in the past, at least PC sim racing, so a little bit of video gaming perhaps, but this is a big step up, running on the Assetto Corsa platform, which is available only on PC, and certainly a much more realistic and lifelike representation of what it's like to be a racing driver. But of course, many of these drivers either currently compete in the real world series or have plans to do so in the future, so it is valuable, a valuable learning experience. And many of the drivers that we've spoken to have said that actually these cars really do handle quite a lot like their real life counterparts, and that is something that was really a big part of the development of this series, to try and get the cars to race as close to how they do in real life and to drive as close as to how they do in real life. I think the organisers have done a pretty good job of that all round. So qualifying then has just under 4 minutes to go, a 15-minute session here to set the grid for race number 1. Jordan Taylor here trying to get the better of CJ Morgan, but actually it's the man behind him, Zach Palmer, using the slipstream from Jordan Taylor perhaps, who jumps up onto the front row and is only half a tenth slower than pole sitter CJ Morgan. Remember, there is a championship point available for qualifying pole position for that first race of the night, and CJ Morgan, although he's in the pit lane right now, might feel the need to leave the pit lane fairly shortly, because his pole position and that bonus point therefore is suddenly in a little bit of jeopardy. So up through the island hairpin we go, on board with Jordan Taylor, the Oulton Park circuit, the middle of the 3 variations that we're using here this week, and we've already been through the roller coaster ride at Old Hall Cascades, down to the island hairpin, now up over Hilltop and down into really the most technically demanding sequence of corners, the Hislops and Knickerbrook sequence. The Hislop chicane is the right-left, avoid the tyre stack on the inside of both of those apexes, and then fire the car off as far to the left as you dare. Jordan Taylor actually giving the grass a wide berth, and that leads to a little bit of understeer coming out of Knickerbrook corner, and perhaps scrubs off a little bit of speed, making its way over Clay Hill now, under the pedestrian bridge, that in real life has been taken away for a bit of a refurb actually over this winter. I believe is back in place now, or will be before the start of the race season. Then into the double apex right-hander at Druids, full commitment through there, over the crest. The car wants to understeer wide onto the grass, but Jordan Taylor keeps it in control nicely. Underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge, down into Lodge Corner then at the end of the lap. And again, a really easy corner to understeer out wide over. The car goes light over the crest, down through the dip. They burst back up over Deer's Leap, underneath the newer of the 2 pedestrian bridges around the circuit, past the pits and across the timing line there, and that was the pole position lap that you were riding on board for with Jordan Taylor. Fantastic effort there from Jordan. He only actually set 1 personal best sector out of the 3 sectors on the lap, but the other 2 were close enough, and his first one impressive enough that it puts him now by 35 thousandths of a second back onto pole position. The question now then is whether or not CJ Morgan can retaliate. He is back out on track, but I think is leaving himself time only for 1 flyer. In fact, there goes CJ Morgan, so let's follow him around the early part of the lap at least, see how he's getting on. He's got fresh tyres bolted onto his Citroen Saxo, and he comes around Old Hall Corner now. They're allowed to run quite wide over that curb, as long as they stay on the concrete, the AstroTurf surface, as opposed to right out onto the grass. That is legal. Down in towards Cascades, then the big bump on the entry, just unsettling the rear of the car slightly, and CJ Morgan looking to try and put a good first sector together. The first timing line is just down the lakeside straight here, I believe, towards the island hairpin. As soon as the timing screen wakes up, I will tell you how he's getting on here. Is CJ Morgan then going to be able to improve upon his current best, which is a 149.101 for the majority of this session? That was good enough for pole position. That late effort there from Jordan Taylor, particularly impressive. Kyle Felvis, by the way, is just in a personal best sector as well. And actually, he is fractionally quicker than Jordan Taylor through the first sector. So Kyle Felvis, who's dropped down into 5th position, is starting to go quickly too. CJ Morgan's first sector is not terrible. In fact, it is also quicker than Jordan Taylor's previous best. Although Taylor going more quickly again in the middle sector. So there is a group of drivers actually all towards the pointy end of this session who are now starting to improve. I think the first of them to get to the line might be Jordan Taylor, who I think is a bit further around the lap than CJ Morgan. Let's see whether he can improve. In fact, there goes Jordan Taylor, and it is a 49.1. So no, not quite an improvement there. So the advantage for Jordan is still a slender one. Zach Palmer hasn't improved from 3rd. Here comes CJ Morgan around Lodge Corner then. So CJ Morgan purple in sector 2. This should be pole position, I think, for the championship leader. Purple means he's going quicker than anybody else has been through the middle part of the lap. And as he gets to the timing line, let's see if it's good enough for pole position for CJ. Yes, it is, with a 148.843, and actually by 3/10 or so, he is now on pole. What can Kyle Felvis do about that, if anything? Well, Felvis' 2nd and 3rd sectors in the end were not improvements, so he stays in 5th place. He's already taken the flag. Riley Bishop was 6th, completes the qualifying session still in 6th place, albeit with a slight improvement on his final lap. But that leaves just Jordan Taylor, who apparently got through to start one more lap, so he's just managed to squeeze one extra circuit out of this. He's not improving in the first sector though at the moment. And the other one, Levine Kishore, who's been sat at the side of the road for quite some time, I notice, coming out of Lodge Corner. So I don't think Levine is likely to improve. So it's now really all down to what Jordan Taylor can do then. The second sector taking you all the way till the exit of Druids, I believe, which is where Jordan is now. The first sector wasn't terrible. It was about a 1/10.5 slower than CJ Morgan's first sector, though, on his fastest lap of the session. Green personal best second sector, more or less matching to the 1,000 CJ Morgan. So it could be an improvement, this, for Jordan Taylor, but I don't think it's quite going to be enough to steal the pole position back. Let's see, though. Across the line he goes, the 19 car then to the timing line. Is it going to be an improvement? The answer is yes, with a purple final sector and a very good lap indeed, but not quite enough to steal the pole position by 1/10 of a second, almost exactly. It is this man, CJ Morgan, who gets himself to the front of the grid. So, entertaining qualifying session then, and CJ Morgan stealing it right at the death. That was pretty impressive stuff. CJ didn't have a great qualifying effort actually last time out at Croft. Only managed 5th on the grid, but still managed to bounce back to a podium in race 1 with 3rd and 2nd in race number 2. This time around, though, he'll be hoping for a slightly easier time of it, as CJ Morgan will start from the very front of the grid and joins us now in the commentary box. CJ, congratulations. You pulled that lap out right when you needed it. How confident were you that you had that lap time in you there?
Oh, not confident at all. Before qualifying, the quickest lap time I'd done was a 49.15. And somehow I've just found 2/10 or 3/10, whatever it was. But I have no clue where it's come from.
That is the sign of a good driver, though, isn't it? Someone who can dig deep, pull that lap out when you needed to. Jordan managed to improve on the last lap as well. So you two seem quite evenly matched. If you were surprised perhaps a bit at the lap that you pulled out there, are you anticipating that this will be a tough fight between you and Jordan?
Oh, 100%. It will definitely be a tight race.
Around a track where it's not easy to pass as well, of course, so getting off the line important.
Yeah.
You've been pretty handy on the starts, though, so far this season, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been quite good off the start, but so has Jordan, so it's going to be quite a drag down to turn 2.
How much of an eye do you have to keep on the championship right now? Because you're in a really good position, nearly 30 points to the good, with a handful of races still to go. The temptation, of course, is to keep on trying to win races, keep on building that margin, but is there maybe an element of protecting that lead that now creeps in?
It's definitely, I've definitely got to be careful, because one DNF can blow it all out of the water for me. So that's definitely a crucial thing that I've got to keep an eye on. But at the same time, I can't lose too many points to Jordan. So it's all about managing it and keeping the gap.
Absolutely. Well, CJ, congratulations on that pole position. We may well be chatting to you if you make it onto the podium at the end of the race, but for now, the very best of luck.
Thank you.
So, CJ Morgan, pole position yet again. He's had quite a few of those this season, although actually it's his race pace that has often been more impressive. One thing we have seen from CJ though, and it's not a criticism at all because all drivers have been struggling with this a little bit, but managing the tyres towards the end of the race. He may well build a gap early on, but it's not uncommon for the others to reel him in towards the end. So the white car then of CJ Morgan, number 59, will start from the pole position, the inside line for Old Hall Corner at a track where track position is vital. That is a big, big advantage. Jordan Taylor, though, right alongside him, his nearest championship rival, of course, and they're sharing row one. Zach Palmer with third place on the grid, and Levine Kishaw, despite only taking part in about half of that session, will be lining up from fourth. Then we've got the guest driver, Kyle Felvers, invisible as far as points are concerned, but very much gunning for race victories if he can get them, and Riley Bishop for company on row 3. Then it is Luke Sintler and JB Petters together on row number 4, and then Alexander Mostav much further back than you would expect from the race winner last a couple of weeks ago at Brands Hatch, and he will be starting 9th alongside Lewis Stannard. Then 11th Josh Salvadori and Harley Connolly, who was on the podium a week ago, starting all the way down in 12th place. Then Will Crewdson and Charlie Constable. Hayden Gray 15th on his debut ahead of Nathan Jensen, and James Sherrington bringing up the rear of what is actually a 17 car grid, we hope, for what will be an entertaining first of 2 20-minute races. So the red lights then are illuminated on the starting gantry. CJ Morgan versus Jordan Taylor from the front row of the grid, and CJ gets a good initial launch. What about the second phase of the start though? Is Jordan Taylor coming back at him? I think he might be as they head towards the first corner. Then one car starting from the pit lane. That looks like it's James Sherrington, but it's door handle to door handle between the top two as they come out of Old Hall Corner. They both sweep out wide, and Zach Palmer may make it 3 wide up the inside line. He's not quite close enough to do so though, and so it is still Taylor versus Morgan. CJ getting the better of Jordan Taylor, who then goes right back around the outside. What a move from Jordan Taylor. How on earth did he pull that off? He's got the inside line now for the Island Hairpin. That was one of the best bits of driving we've seen all season from Jordan Taylor. That is how important it is to get in front early doors here at Oulton Park, and he's not yet got the job done because CJ Morgan is hanging tough on the outside. Lewis Stannard is out onto the grass, narrowly avoiding the barriers at the Island Hairpin, but at the head of the field, Jordan Taylor, I think, has established himself as the race leader now. CJ Morgan second, Zach Palmer in third. Down towards Hislops they go for the first time. Brilliant battle that was, and squeaky clean as well between Taylor and CJ. And now Jordan Taylor looks to try and make his escape. Adam Knickerbrook then up the hill towards Clay Hill for the first time of asking. And things now just starting to settle down. Levine Kishaw is in... He's not in 4th place, I think he is in 4th place ahead of Riley Bishop and then Carl Felvers, with Luke Sintler, Alex Mostav, JB Petters, who you're on board with, and Josh Salvadori completing the top 10. Towards the right-hander, double apex right-hander at Druids they go, and JB Petters clobbers the first of those curbs. That is not really the quickest way through that corner. You can see him dropping back slightly from the car ahead as a result. Go over the roller coaster ride there, undulating their way past the Cheshire countryside into the braking zone at Lodge at the end of lap number 1, where the top 2 already are starting to make a little bit of a break here. Jordan Taylor, though, what a brilliant opening lap that was. Got a slightly better second phase of the start. Didn't really bog down quite as much as CJ Morgan did on the run to turn 1. Hung tough around the outside, looked as though he conceded the place into Cascades, and then just sent it back to the outside line again. That was fantastic stuff. Zach Palmer, meanwhile, running wide there in 3rd place, and this now starting to become a pretty tasty battle for that bottom step of the podium between Palmer, Kishaw, Bishop, and Kyle Felvers. Kyle might be a bit disappointed, I think, to be down in 6th position, actually. We'll see if he can move forward as the race goes on. Meanwhile, Alex Mostav and JB Petters there, door handle to door handle. CJ Morgan goes up the inside into the hairpin. Brilliant move, and he reclaims the race lead, but Jordan Taylor isn't going to back down without a fight and gets the switchback, gets back up the inside over Hill Tom. The two cars almost leaning on each other as they crest the hill and drop down the other side. There is still a tiny, tiny, tiny overlap, and you can be sure that Jordan Taylor will break lane. There's contact. Off goes CJ into the barriers, back into the road. Narrowly avoided by everybody else, but the championship leader in major trouble. Off as well has gone Riley Bishop, excuse me. That is, who's gone round. Carl Felvers involved too. Well, that was not ideal, was it? I didn't quite see exactly what happened to trigger that initial bit of contact, but we saw from the previous shot there was a tiny overlap between Jordan and CJ going over the hill, and the next thing you know, they've made contact and CJ Morgan was slewing off into the barriers. So Taylor survives with the lead, Zach Palmer second, Levine Kishore third, Jamie Petters fourth, Alex Mostav in fifth, Lewis Stannard, Luke Sintler, Harley Connolly, Josh Salvadori in ninth, and then CJ Morgan actually still going in 10th spot. So CJ Morgan, if the car's not too badly damaged, might be okay, but you'd imagine there will be some sort of damage done after ricocheting off the barrier like that at pretty high speed. So Zach Palmer then goes through in second place with a new fastest lap as well, so that's a bonus point for him. And has he now got an answer for Jordan Taylor? Meanwhile, this is now the fight for third, and Jamie Petters and Alexander Mostav actually both gaining majorly out of that. Lewis Stannard, who was sixth, is in the barriers. His day or race not over, but certainly hampered by a major shunt coming out of the first turn, and he will rejoin, in fact, behind Carl Felvers and Hayden Gray. He may not even get going at all, Lewis Stannard, that's a shame. James Sherrington, by the way, somehow has dropped the lap down. He's been back in the pit lane, so some sort of issue for Sherrington in the early stages. As I was saying, this three-way fight for third. Levine Kishore gained one place out of all of the carnage a lap ago, but well, Jamie Petters and Alexander Mostav really did gain big positions out of all of that. And of course, significant there, particularly for Alexander Mostav, because he is fourth in the championship. He's only 13 behind Jordan Taylor, or second in the championship, and of course they all now have the potential to gain points on CJ Morgan. Remember, CJ said to us in his post-qualifying interview just now that one DNF can blow the championship wide open. Well, it's not a DNF, he is still running in ninth at the moment, but looks likely to drop some points to those around him in the championship. Petters over the curb, oh my word, you don't want to be hitting that curb. Jamie Petters couldn't be a lot closer actually to Levine Kishore, gives him a bit of a love tap through Druids, and we've seen this in the past from these Saxos. That just transfers all of your energy onto the car ahead, loses you time. The bump draft really effective for the car in front, but not so much for the car doing the pushing, and so relieves the pressure momentarily for Kishore, allows Mostav, who you ride on board with now, to close in on Jamie Petters too. And Alex Mostav then heading into the first corner at Old Hall. Charlie Constable, meanwhile, doing battle with the recovering Riley Bishop. So I'm not quite sure what happened between Bishop and Felvers. They must have had a moment in avoidance of CJ Morgan, because I made the point that he bounced off the grass, sort of looked like he was coming back into the road, and others did well to avoid him. Perhaps that then triggered a secondary bit of contact between Felvers and Riley, because next thing you knew, they were both pointing the wrong way as well. Felvers coming out slightly better in 12th, but Riley Bishop 13th. Don't forget, you've got the full reverse grid race as well coming up for race 2, so everyone who finishes on the lead lap in this race gets reversed to give us the grid for race number 2. Carl Felvers there being allowed through, I think, by Nathan Jensen. I realised that the number 5 car was quick. In fact, Nathan, I think, has some sort of problem, doesn't he? He's very slow out of the island hairpin. The Regrazzi Motorsport car, sadly, not going at full race pace, that's for sure. Not immediately obvious what the problem is. He comes over the hill, just staying out of people's way and waving them all through. Not entirely sure what that is all about. Anyway, we'll try and figure that out if we can. But yeah, Harley Connolly here on the tail of Luke Sintler. Luke Sintler having a good run. In fact, Luke was pretty quick at Croft. He picked himself up a penalty for not being in the driver chat during the pre-race briefing, but apart from that, was pretty impressive at Croft. He just slid a little bit wide, though, through Druids, and so Harley Connolly now sees a chance to get up the inside line. This for 6th position at Lodge Corner, and Harley is going to go through. So Harley Connolly into 6th place. Leaves plenty of space on the exit though, and so actually Luke Sintler coming back at him now as they go over Deer Leap. 2 wheels on the grass, and CJ Morgan right behind looking to capitalise. So this is of significance now. Championship leader CJ Morgan on a recovery drive after that shunt earlier on. Looks up the inside, thinks better of it. CJ, we've seen on multiple occasions this season, is capable of driving with his head as much as anything else. You will know that this has been a disappointment for sure, but he's still going and actually still has a good chance to break into the top half dozen, maybe even get into the top 5 still, the pace that he's got. So he knows he can afford to be patient. 12 minutes still to go. His car seems to be driving okay, and he can see a gap up the inside now into the island hairpin. So Harley Connolly leaving that door invitingly open. The Chandler Motorsport driver slips through on the inside. Whoops, goes straight on, parks the car right in front of Harley so that Harley can't get the switchback. And CJ Morgan goes through. So could overtake that. Bit of a block pass, but it's perfectly legal. And so he goes through into 7th spot. So down through the Hislop chicane they will go. Jordan Taylor really establishing himself out in front. I mean, regardless what happened, and I'm sure we'll get his thoughts on the matter after the race, but regardless what happened with CJ Morgan, since then he's driven sublimely. In fact, apart from that little bit of contact, it's been a perfect race this for Jordan Taylor. That opening lap was astonishingly good, and now he's just the class of the field, isn't he? 4 seconds up the road. Zach Palmer second, starting to be reeled in slightly by Loveen Kishore, with Jamie Petters, Alexander Mostav next. Mostav sort of in no man's land though, actually. And Luke Sindler, who is the next target of CJ Morgan's. Out of Lodge they go once again then towards Old Hall Corner. And Taylor sets the new fastest lap. That's, again, of significance. Extra championship point for him. So as it stands then, Jordan Taylor would be on course for 26 championship points, whereas CJ Morgan in 7 would be on course for 16, plus the bonus for fastest lap. So that's for pole position, I should say. So that's 9-point swing in the advantage of Jordan Taylor, except that's already out of date because now CJ Morgan slips up the inside of Luke Sintner for 6. So that's now 18 points, plays 26, an 8-point gain for Jordan Taylor, provisionally at least. And that means that the margin comes down by about a third, actually, of what it was between the top two in the points. Things finally poised here to take us into the final couple of rounds if things finish as they are now. Of course, the more ground that CJ Morgan gains in this race, the more points he scores, but the further back on the grid he puts himself for race 2. So he might have been tempted, I suppose, at one point to think about finishing low down in this one, sacrifice the points and then do well in race 2, but that's not the way he thinks. And you have to anticipate that people like Jordan Taylor will be able to make progress in race 2, even starting from the back. So you can't just bank on them having a terrible race, even if you have a good one. So Carl Felbus then over Clay Hill, trying now to break back into the top 10. That is Will Crudson, who is the next car in front of him. Hearing, by the way, that Nathan Jensen's issue was that he lost his force feedback. So force feedback issues for Nathan Jensen, meaning that he slowed right down. Of course, you can still drive the car with no force feedback, but it will feel very strange. And again, drivers who aren't particularly that experienced in sim racing terms might not know exactly what's going on there. Carl Felbus suddenly gaining mid-corner time on Will Crudson there, who is looking for a top 10 finish if he can fend off Kyle. Always a tricky situation, drivers tell me, when they jump into a championship partway through, especially if it's as a guest driver. And someone who's not scoring championship points, you're out there simply for your own glory. You want to try and get good results for yourself, and therefore, in a way, don't really need to care too much about other drivers around you and what their situation is. Well, Felbus in the end has it made easy for him, diving up the inside of the yellow car that was sliding out wide of Will Crudson. So an easy place gain there by Kyle. But yeah, in theory, Kyle doesn't really need to worry too much about other people's championship situation. But of course, because he's a guest driver, he kind of has to look after them a bit, doesn't he? Make sure that he doesn't cause them too much trouble. We saw there, that was Josh Salvador going up the inside of Harley Connolly. But this is more important because it's CJ Morgan breaking back into the top 5 and getting up the inside of his Chandler Motorsport teammate there, Alexander Mostav, who understandably didn't make life too tough on him. Behind Salvador, I stayed behind Harley Connolly. So one of those side-by-side pairs changed position whilst the other one stayed as it was. We are about 2/3 of the way through now this first race of 2 tonight around Oulton Park. Jordan Taylor leading the way comfortably. So Harley Connolly takes a very odd line there through the entry to Druids and then tries to close the door a bit on Salvador. Contact is made. Around they both go, and Salvador is in the middle of the road. Oh, just avoided by Riley Bishop there and others. And Salvador, in fairness, appears to be trying to let Harley Connolly back through, which he has done, but that was a tricky one, really. Harley took a very odd line going through the little kink at the water tower just before Druids, and that sort of unsettled his car. He started getting sideways, and Josh saw a gap up the inside, but it was a gap that was ever closing, and the two just kind of met in the middle, to be honest. It's one of those where very grateful that we have other people who can make the decisions on who's to blame for things like that, because that was a little bit 50-50 for my money. Riley Bishop, meanwhile, trying now to get ahead of Will Cruden, who, of course, because of that, finds himself back in the top 10 now. This time doesn't slide quite as wide through Cascades Corner, but gets a very slow exit for whatever reason. And leaves the inside line wide open into the island hairpin, so Riley slips through nice and easily. Cruden's still inside the top 10, but perhaps realising that Riley was a little bit quicker than him at that stage, didn't really want to put up too much of a fight and sort of let him go. Back over Hilltop then. Just under 6 minutes to go. The lead for Zach Taylor is nearly 6 seconds now. Palmer to Kishore 7/10. That's pretty static. Jamie Petters is 2.9 ahead of CJ Morgan. That's a gap I guess we need to keep one eye on. CJ Morgan, though, already with a brilliant recovery drive here to get into the top 5 after that high speed off that he had on the second lap of the race. Got Mostav behind him. Luke Sintler, you're following here all on his own, really, in 7th. Carl Felvis up to 8th as well, ahead of Riley Bishop and Will Cruden. Hearing that Luke Sintler, by the way, just clipped those tyres through the Hislop's chicane, which can do damage to your car, but I think he's managed to get away with it. You know, the fight for second place. This could now be where the bulk of the interest lies in the remaining quarter of the race, because Levine Kishore, who you're on board with, is right on the tail now of Zach Palmer, who runs very, very, very wide out of Old Hall Corner. To gain a little bit of extra time on the exit there. The HFT Racing driver Levine Kishore, though, looking to try and move into second place if he can. We sort of predicted that he was going to be a championship contender earlier on in the season, but had to miss a couple of rounds here and there. That's just dropped him down the order. Perhaps because he's been dipping in and out of the championship, hasn't had quite the consistency of the likes of Taylor or Morgan. But on his day has been every bit as quick as them. Was very rapid at the season opener at Silverstone, remember, Levine Kishore, challenging CJ Morgan for victories on both occasions. And now looking to try and get into second place before this one's over. Down through his lops, there you can see those tyre stacks that you really need to avoid. The car bouncing off the curb there, Levine getting a wheel onto the grass, and that just puts him offline slightly into Knickerbrook Corner itself. Climb uphill towards the top of Clay Hill, making no real attempt to get in the slipstream there, Levine Kishore. Instead taking the shortest line possible up the hill, and avoids hitting too much of that curb through the left-hand kink into Druids. Inch perfect really for both of them through there. Levine perhaps a fraction quicker through the second apex, and that's crucial because Lodge Corner is one of the best overtaking chances on the circuit. And you need a good exit from Druids to really launch an attack down here, but Levine Kishore wasn't quite close enough. So the black and pink car stays third for the time being. So we have 3.25 minutes to go. Trying to work out that might just be 2 more laps left. I think we need plenty of personal best lap times starting to come in. Best lap of the race still belongs to Jordan Taylor, 49.146, but he was within about a hundredth of a second or so of that lap time on the previous lap. So Jordan Taylor not really struggling with tyres too much right now. Oulton Park is not a particularly hard track on tyres compared to some of the others that we've raced at, it must be said. CJ Morgan dropping down the timing screen. Has CJ had another moment? Yes, he is plummeting, isn't he? CJ Morgan is in the pit lane. Oh no, there he is. He's having connection issues. Oh dear. So CJ Morgan then still going, but giving everyone a bit of a worry there. Certainly his friends and family watching at home will have been concerned, but CJ still in 5th place. That's it was a scary moment for him there, and for anyone around him as well, if that car was blinking in and out of existence, but it looks to have stabilised for the time being. Riley Bishop, meanwhile, on the tail of Kyle Felvis. That's because Felvis has found a way past Riley in the recent past. Riley Bishop then sat in 9th position now. Both of these drivers will be a tad disappointed with the way that their race has gone. For reason, although of course actually they were both involved in the same incident, were they? Didn't really get a proper grip on what happened between these two down at Hislops, because I was focusing on what was going on with CJ Morgan. Now look at this for second. Levine Kishore as close as ever he has been now as they go through onto what I think will be the final lap of the race just about. And Levine Kishore in the HFT racing car asking all the right questions of Zach Palmer, but Zach so far able to provide all of the right answers, although he's very, very wide at Old Hall Corner, barely avoids the barriers. Now, remember I said that you were allowed to run a certain way wide at Old Hall Corner. I can safely tell you that that was beyond the track limits that they're entitled to use. So he may well find himself in some trouble for that. He was nearly out of the race altogether if he'd have caught the end of that tyre wall. So clearly a bit of understeer creeping in to Zach Palmer's car. He was doing that a bit in qualifying, I noticed earlier on too. Defends into the hairpin. The car's squirming around under braking. Zach not very happy at all with the way his car's handling. He's out onto the grass again, out of the island hairpin, somehow hanging on to this, but inventing his own lines really around most of these corners. Levine Kishore will be a tad frustrated at this, I think, down towards the Hislop chicane for the last time. Is he going to try and make the move later on in the lap? Really, that's his only option. He's not quite close enough through Hislops. Takes a neater line, though, this time than the last time we rode on board with Levine through that particular sequence of corners. So as they now begin the climb up out of Knickerbrook, across the top of Clay Hill, setting himself up perhaps for a move at Lodge Corner, but actually he has Jamie Petters pretty much as close to him as he is to Zach Palmer ahead. So through Druids, those three getting themselves very close together on the run to the flag. No one anywhere near Jordan Taylor, though. It's a shame that he and CJ Morgan had that little tangle earlier on, because that was shaping up to be one of the best battles of the season. But it is a win, provisionally at least, for Jordan Taylor, the JT Racing driver, over the top of the hill. He will win race number 1 here at Oulton Park in the Junior Saloon Car Championship's official E-Series. Second place will go the way of Zach Palmer, despite his bit of grass tracking on the final lap. Levine Kishore having to settle for 3rd position, and then it was Jamie Petters, CJ Morgan, Alex Mostav, Luke Sintler, Riley Bishop, Carl Felbus and Will Cruden should come through to complete the top 10. But Jordan Taylor able to bring home another race victory. He really has been on a run of form. That's the last 3 races won by Jordan Taylor. And he did this one in fine style, it must be said, with a big, big winning margin by the end of it. The rest of them just starting to come through now to the end of the race. In the meantime, we can catch up with our top 3 drivers in that one then. And we begin with race winner Jordan Taylor, who has a lot of stories to tell after what was a pretty entertaining start to the race there. Jordan, loved the battle that you had with CJ Morgan on the opening lap. That was absolutely incredible. But what exactly happened on that second lap when the two of you appeared to tangle?
I think, well, CJ went up my inside at the hairpin. We both were alongside. He had a bit of a better run, and he was. I think he might have been a bit too eager. If it was a couple more seconds, maybe a second more, it would have been a perfect timing. But it was just a bit too early. I had nowhere to go. Clipped his rear panel, and then he spun round. I mean, it would have been a more interesting race if that didn't happen, obviously. But it's just I can't do anything about it.
You're absolutely right, because that first lap or so was some of the best battling we'd seen all season. Talk us through the move that you made on the first lap down at turn 2 at Cascades, where it looked like CJ had the better of you and you just went round the outside of him.
Yeah, it was a good move. I got a good start initially, got a decent run around the first corner, had a bit of speed. I saw he went to the inside and braked earlier than I usually do, so I just did my normal line, left him room on the inside, and just I drove past him.
And from that point on, at least after the contact, you never looked back. Of course, now you're going to be dodging a bit more contact, I suspect, in race number 2. Definitely. A narrow old track, this, isn't it, for a reverse grid race?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got quite a lot of long straights, so I'd just be getting a good run out the corners and slowly picking them off down the straights.
Well, Jordan, best of luck for that second race, and congratulations. A fantastic battle while it lasted there. Well done on the race win.
Thank you, Andy.
So Jordan Taylor gets the race victory then. Second place for Zach Palmer, though, and Zach, that was a fighting second place, wasn't it? You really had to get your elbows out towards the end. It looked as though maybe the handling was starting to go away on the car a bit. Would you say that's fair?
I wouldn't really say the handling, but more of the pressure was more building up each lap. Just pulling away, getting slowed up, catching and catching. Yeah, it's quite nerve-wracking.
See, a lesser racing driver would have blamed the tyres or something there. So refreshingly honest, actually. You were feeling the heat, but managed to keep it all going the right way. And you've got to be happy there to get back onto the podium. It's been a little while since we last spoke to you.
Yeah, I've done a good quali. I didn't think I would. Didn't think I would, I would rather say. And saw the tracker and was in third place and was quite chuffed. Wouldn't have thought I'd have been in top 3 again, but I did.
Absolutely, a well-deserved second place, and I'm sure won't be the last time we get to chat to you this season. Zach, best of luck for race 2, and well done. Good to have you back on the podium.
Thank you.
And our final podium finisher to have a chat to then. Third place in that one for Levine Kishore, and Levine, it wasn't for the want of trying. You were giving everything to Zach Palmer there, but he just had an answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was very fun. I just had to apply as much pressure as I could, and to be honest, I didn't really have the pace in the last 3 rounds, including this one, so I'm very happy with the result. And I'm very happy there was no battling either, so it was a calm and collected race. So hopefully I see you next race as well.
Yeah, well, that probably won't be all that calm, and it must be said the first few laps of that one weren't. What was your view of the action in the opening laps? Because you really benefited from all of that, didn't you?
I think I just had to keep calm and take as many places as I could. Obviously for me it's great, but it's unfortunate for CJ and Kyle as well, because he's my teammate, and it's very unfortunate that the team missed out on some great points. It would have been a really good result, but yeah, I've just capitalised on everything and it went well.
Absolutely. Well, we were hoping to see Kyle near the front in race 1. I'm sure he'll be up there in race 2. Hopefully you can join him up there too, Levine. Congratulations on the podium in the meantime, then.
Thank you. See you.
So Levine Kishore then, third place finish in that race. Zach Palmer second, Jordan Taylor taking the race victory. And now everything changes. We completely flip that running order on its head, and we end up with Nathan Jensen and Hayden Gray on the front row. Remember, Hayden in that black and blue car in only his second ever start in the series, so he is really being thrown in at the deep end now. Lewis Stannard and Josh Salvadori together on row 2 ahead of Harley Connolly and Will Crudson row 3. Kyle Felvers could be one of the real favourites here, starting from 7th, the first of the really quick drivers, the guest driver there coming from row number 4. Alongside Riley Bishop, with whom he had that little moment at the early stages of race 1. Then Luke Sintler and Alexander Mostav to complete the top 10 ahead of CJ Morgan, who now of course does at least start ahead of Jordan Taylor on the grid. He's got Jamie Petters for company on row 6. Then Levine Kishore, Zach Palmer and Jordan Taylor, the top 3 from race 1, 13th, 14th and 15th respectively, ahead of Charlie Constable and James Sherrington, who hopefully this time will start from on the grid as opposed to taking a pit lane start as he did in race number 1. So let's see what happens then in our second race of the night here at Oulton Park. As I said, it's a narrow track, lots of blind corners, really difficult to react when things start stacking up ahead of you, and there'll be a little bit of that, I would imagine, this being the reversed grid race. The lights go out, and a good initial jump made there by, well, all of the drivers at the front of the grid, really. Look at, that's Mostav, I think, isn't it, coming steaming through the middle of everyone from the 5th row of the grid, really gaining some ground on the run to Old Hall Corner, where who has got the lead? Let's see. It is, oh, well, first of all, sideways for Will Crudson. Was that in the middle of the field? Yes, it was. He's bouncing down the grass. Lewis Stannard up into 3rd position. It is Josh Salvadori, though, who comes steaming round the outside to get the inside line for Cascades, and he takes the lead away from Nathan Jensen, who runs out wide, 3, nearly 4 wide further back. That is Riley Bishop out onto the grass. Oh, and he's sliding back towards the road. Let's hope he gathers that all together. He does, and miraculously, everyone else else avoiding him. There's the car off. That was Kishore, I think. Kishore heavily off into the barriers, and he's taken with him Hayden Gray, whose car almost goes over, actually, as it bounces back onto the road. So Levine Kishore, one of the first high-profile casualties from this race. Salvador leads down towards his lot by 1.6 seconds already from Harley Connolly second, Lewis Stannard third, CJ Morgan going for fourth already, as there Stannard goes up the inside of Harley Connolly for second position. CJ Morgan did go into fourth position ahead of Alexander Mostav, who's just trying to fend off Jamie Petters. A very, very energetic start to the race, as we expected. Quick guys coming from further back. There's someone else on the grass now coming out of Knickerbrook corner on the left and the right. In fact, cars grass tracking slightly. You're riding on board with race one winner Jordan Taylor, who is finding a gap where really no gap seems to exist. He's got the inside into Druid's corner though, and Jordan Taylor is into 7th place already, and the two cars ahead are both running out wide. Sideways over the grass for Jamie Petters. Mostav goes up the inside of him, and Jordan Taylor will try to pit the pocket of at least one of them if he can, coming through Lodge corner. Late on the brakes, not too late though, doesn't want to get into the back of Mostav's car. Well, he does get into the back of Mostav's car, and behind him that was Nathan Jensen with a big snap of oversteer as he came over the hill, and he runs out wide and falls into 12th place. I need to remember to breathe when it's as action-packed as that. That was a very lively first lap. So much going on. Josh Salvador looking for his first podium in the championship is your early race leader. Zach Palmer taking his now customary line over the grass out of Old Hall. Is his way back on again just ahead of James Sherrington, I think that is, who's come from the back of the grid into 9th place already. Brilliant start for him. Charlie Constable there out wide. The recovering Nathan Jensen goes up the inside. By the way, everyone did complete that first lap, even Levine Kishore and Hayden Gray after that their sizable shunts down at this part of the track on lap 1. So we've still got all 17 starters running in the race for now, as people still are trying to get themselves in the right sort of order. Kyle Felvers has not had a very good night, has he? He's 10th place at the moment, having started 7th, and just hasn't been able to avoid drama, it seems, so far. Should have the pace to pick a few off, though, as we get deeper into the race. He's all over the back of James Sherrington, and they both are following this battle between Alexander Mostav and Zach Palmer. Palmer will be a little bit frustrated he's not been able to go with Jordan Taylor here, because with Levine Kishore out of contention, those two now arguably become the favourites, along with CJ Morgan, who of course really is the favourite now, running in 3rd position. Side-by-side action further back. Lee Sintler has the inside line towards Druid's corner. The right-hander on Nathan Jensen, and so Sintler hanging on to 13th, I think, there, as they went up the hill. Side by side, Mostav and Palmer. Behind them, Felvers and Sherrington side by side as well. And Carl Felvers has slipped through into 9th position now. Mostav keeping Palmer at bay, but an excellent switchback manoeuvre there made by Zach Palmer, and he should now have the inside line down towards Old Hall corner. The concern I've got here, though, is that Zach has been struggling with a touch of understeer through Old Hall, and now he's on the inside line with another car to his outside. He steams through on the inside, but yeah, runs extremely wide over the grass again and gains the place. But Zach needs to be a bit careful with that, because he might find himself in trouble with the clerk of the course afterwards for excessive track limits. If not, though, because he's pretty quick this week, and he could still gain some more places before the day is done. CJ Morgan, meanwhile, gaining places on the outside of Lewis Stannard, that was. And this really is the important race now for CJ, to try and regroup, try and reclaim some points that he lost in race 1, and try to gain some ground before that black car of Jordan Taylor gets onto his tail. Jordan up behind Harley Connolly. That is Riley Bishop off, though. The Mini Bish racing car has bashed the wall up at the Island hairpin, and he's going to have to select reverse gear to get going once more. So yeah, Jordan Taylor on the tail of the Jamie Petters and Harley Connolly battle. They're both catching Lewis Stannard in 3rd, but Taylor really needs to try and get through this group as quickly as he can before CJ Morgan disappears off up the road. Of course, CJ already setting his sights on Josh Salvador, who still leads this race. This is the best showing we've seen from Josh so far this season, and he won't want to give up that race victory without a fight. We're only, though, 5.5 minutes into this race. There's a long way to go, and CJ Morgan is going to be in no mood to back off in 2nd position. And oh yes, I thought I'd seen the safety car graphic appear. We are going safety car, so not entirely sure what the safety car is coming out for, but it's going to punch everyone back together again nicely. I didn't think it could be if Riley Bishop is stuck in the wall at the Island Hairpin. He can't get going again, and so that is the reason for the safety car. So again, keeping this as lifelike as possible. If there was a car stuck at that part of the circuit in real life, there's no doubt about it, the safety car would be scrambled, and that's exactly what Scott Thorne, our race director, has had to do. Not at all, because he's just looking for some excuses to lap the Oulton Park circuit in the BMW safety car. I'm sure he's enjoying that element of the job, but he'd much rather not have to intervene. And certainly Josh Salvadori will have wished that he didn't intervene, because that little gap that he did have over CJ Morgan has well and truly disappeared. Although actually it gives him a chance to regroup. It was likely that CJ was going to catch him over the next lap or so anyway. A lap of safety car will take some time off the clock, give Josh a chance to cool his tyres down, cool himself down. It also gives everybody else a chance to close in on the crocodile too. So those who've lost touch in the early stages are now able to regain some of that lost ground, or at least have a fighting chance of gaining some places before the checkered flag. Scott Thorne brings the BMW down through Hislop's and Knickerbrook. The order then: Salvadori the leader, Morgan second, Stannard third, Peters fourth, Harley Connolly fifth, ahead of Jordan Taylor, Zach Palmer, Alexander Mostav, Carl Felvis and James Sherrington. So championship-wise now then, advantage CJ Morgan. But if Jordan Taylor can gain a couple of positions, then he will at least have gained something out of tonight. The gap will be slightly smaller than it was coming into this evening's races. To wait and see how this all plays out. CJ Morgan, there's every chance, will feel that he's got the pace to win this race, and he's not going to want to settle for second, but also needs to be careful. He was saying, wasn't he, needs to protect this lead, make sure he doesn't make any mistakes, doesn't have any contact. He's dodged one bullet already tonight. He needs to be absolutely certain that the same thing does not happen again. Safety car looks as though it's staying out for another lap here. Yeah, lights I think had briefly gone out, but they're back on again. The BMW safety car. So one more lap behind the pace car around Oulton Park, just to allow everyone to catch up, I think, although Riley Bishop is showing as one lap down, so I think he must have got back to the pits, but there will be some damage repair to be done. Everyone else, though, pretty much back where they ought to be, I think. So Josh Salvadori then with work to be done, but honestly I do now think, especially with this second lap behind the safety car, that the this safety car intervention is helping him. Actually, it's allowing him to probably have a lap or so less than he has to defend from CJ Morgan, because we're almost halfway. We will be halfway through this race, I think, by the time this lap has been completed. Don't forget, Driver of the Round award, courtesy of FreeM UK. You can place your vote in the comments on the YouTube video, so who you think has been the most impressive driver so far. Quite a few candidates for that, and a pair of FreeM Sim Racing gloves will be making their way to the winning driver of that award. Hayden Gray and Riley Bishop look have caught up the back of the pack, so Bishop is actually still going, but being classified, I think, as one lap down still. So not really at the races particularly. Hayden Gray is still on the lead lap, so he's going to be wanting to push forward from there. He's got some other quick drivers back there as well. Levine Kishaw, another who benefits from this potentially. Bit of a halfway reset for him. He closes back in on the tail of the field. Again, if the car's not too badly damaged, should be able to gain some progress even from 15th place. So, lights out on the safety car. That means that Josh Salvadori now can bunch everyone up, and he really is bunching everyone up as they come through Druid's Corner. When will he stand on the loud pedal then? Is he going to leave it late? Is he going to go early? He's not accelerating yet. Wants to try and cause maximum confusion behind him, really, as the others are starting to play bumper cars slightly. That congestion is perhaps what he's going to use to try and make his escape. Down towards Lodge Corner they come. Still Salvadori stubbornly refusing to accelerate as the race leader, but he can do this as long as he wants to. He can wait as long as he wants to before hitting the accelerator. Oh, that's Hayden Gray onto the grass in the background, as I don't think someone didn't get the memo that they were still going slowly. Not anymore, though, because look at that. We have now accelerated away, and Josh Salvadori with a dream restart. CJ Morgan under all sorts of pressure, and watch for Jordan Taylor, the black car, already making moves. Remember, you can't overtake before the timing line, and I think he just about managed to stay within that rule there, Jordan Taylor, but he's up the inside of Harley Connolly and tried to break through. In fact, he has broken through now into the top 5. Zach Palmer looking to come with him. CJ Morgan really dropping back from Salvadori, and now that safety car definitely has benefited Josh. Gave him a couple of extra laps where he didn't have to defend, and he's got a bigger gap now than he probably did before the safety car was scrambled in the first place. Down towards Island Bend then, or Island Hairpin as it is, on this island circuit configuration. And Jordan Taylor still actually trying to get the better here of Harley Connolly, who has fought back on him through Cascades. And look at that, change for third. Jamie Petters up the inside of Lewis Stannard, but he hasn't got him cleared yet. We've seen how this can go wrong in the past if they lean on each other too much coming over Hilltop. And Jordan Taylor there to pick up the pieces if it does all go wrong in front of him. Onto the brakes into Hislops. Jordan Taylor watching his mirrors as well as everyone closes in on him. Zach Palmer up the inside. Oh, and gets lent on. He's off the road. Zach Palmer off the road. Just tried to close the door a bit there, I think, on Harley Connolly. Oh, and then he comes back into Alexander Mostav. He was on the grass, lost control, and Zach Palmer... Oh, that is a shame. It's been an impressive night for Zach, but that was a mistake that he will already be ruining, I'm sure. And certainly Alexander Mostav won't be particularly pleased with the way that his race has come unstuck. So one of the Chandler Motorsport drivers in strife, the other barely hanging on to second place. That safety car really has changed the complexion of the race for a couple of the drivers up and down the order. Lewis Stannard in third position here then. Trying now, having got past Jamie Petters, to have a crack at CJ Morgan as well, and Jordan Taylor at the back of it. So it's really the two cars at the front and back of this quartet who are of the most significance for the championship. CJ Morgan and Jordan Taylor, but the two in the middle really just looking for a podium. In fact, both of them, I think, Stannard and Petters, looking for their first podium finishes of the season. Ooh, Petters out wide though, and Jordan Taylor needed no second invitation. He carries the speed off Old Hall Corner and clears him before they even get to the right-hand kink at Denton's. So Jamie Petters down to 5th place now. More significantly, Jordan Taylor up into 4th, and now only one car between himself and CJ Morgan. Jordan Taylor is not giving in this championship fight, is he? He wants to try and put the pressure on CJ. And as long as Josh Salvadori is leading the race, there is still the potential for Jordan Taylor to get up there and challenge Morgan, and maybe even challenge for a double race victory again. To the brakes into the hairpin come Levine Kishore and Nathan Jensen. Kishore to 13th now, as some others had dramas upon the restart. Mostav down in 15th, Zach Palmer 16th, Riley Bishop 17th still after bringing out the safety car in the first place. Some quick drivers at the wrong end of the timing tower at the moment. Kishore trying to do something about that, but we've said a few times it's difficult to pass here at Oulton Park. You've got to be committed, but you've got to be safe and smart with your overtaking as well. It's not a track like Donington or Silverstone where you can just get the slipstream, pull out, dive up the inside into a braking zone on a really wide track. You have got to plan your moves a little bit more smartly around here. Luke Sittler tried to do that for 10th place, but this is for the race lead, and Josh Salvadori, the closer we get to the end of this race now, the less inclined he's going to be to make life easy for CJ Morgan. He's defending the inside line at Lodge, as he is perfectly entitled to do. He runs a bit wide on the exit, he's out onto the grass, and that opens the door now for Morgan, and maybe for others as well. Josh Salvadori, can he get back in line? That's what he's trying to do, trying to slot in behind CJ Morgan, who does become the new race leader. But here comes Jordan Taylor. He's going up the inside of Lewis Stannard, who was trying to go to the inside of Salvadori as well. Stannard on the outside line could end up getting freight trained as well here, as Jordan Taylor attempts to go through into third. He does go through into third. Bit of a hip and shoulder there as Jamie Petters also goes past Stannard, and Jordan Taylor now being given the real hurry up because he can see CJ Morgan going for that move. Oh, there's contact! There's contact! Sideways for Taylor. That was Jamie Petters who got into the left rear corner of him, and all of that progress that Jordan Taylor was making has gone out of the window. Now he's back down into 5th position. Petters onto the podium, but in robust fashion. In fact, mate, that's 6th now for Jordan Taylor. Harley Connolly locking up the brakes, was briefly ahead of him into the Island hairpin, but then drifted out a bit too wide. Jordan Taylor back into the top 5 again. But that was really unfortunate there. You can see how that happened, really. Jordan Taylor was looking to try and take a wide line through Cascades to carry the speed down the Lakeside Straight and challenge Josh Salvadori. but that left that inviting gap on the inside for Jamie Petters. He went for it. There was a tiny bit of contact. There's a bit of contact that I've seen many times over the years at Oulton Park. And for Jordan Taylor, it has now almost certainly cost him a chance at a race victory, because with less than 5 minutes to go now, he has to clear 3 cars before he even thinks about trying to bridge what is at the moment a 2-second gap to CJ Morgan. And that gap's just going to keep on growing now. Connolly, a bit of understeer there, carries a bit too much speed through Cascades. Oh, Nathan Jensen and Hayden Gray have been off on the exit of Knickerbrook corner. Jensen getting back on in front of Hayden, not entirely sure how they got there. Has dropped them down to the very back, really, of the lead lap cars. CJ Morgan sets the fastest lap of the race, so on the lap immediately after he took the lead, he is already going quicker than anybody else. Old corner, go midfield runners. Jordan Taylor, with it all to do again now, needs to try and get back into at least a podium place, because at the moment CJ Morgan, I think, would be on course to outscore him now over the night. A win and a 5th place it would be for Taylor, a win and a 4th place for CJ Morgan, and of course CJ taking the bonus point for fastest lap at the moment in this race. Oh dear, that was aggressive. Lewis Stannard up the inside of Josh Salvadori, runs very wide, now rejoins alongside Jamie Petters, who already had Jordan Taylor hunting around on the inside of him. That was 3 wide for a moment or two, and they all come out in the end the same places in which they were going into the corner. That was very ambitious under braking for the well, now 3rd place car, Lewis Stannard, but he was briefly 2nd going through the island hairpin into the Knickerbrook chicane, or the Hislop chicane, the Knickerbrook complex, come Naveen Kishore and Charlie Constable. So that's Kishore now into 11th. Can he salvage a top 10 out of this, I wonder? Well, to do so, well, no, he's about 10 seconds, I think, isn't he, behind Will Cruden, so that's not likely to happen unless someone else drops out ahead of him. We're going to be starting the penultimate lap this time around, so 2 more laps to go here. Jordan Taylor looking to try and get back ahead of Jamie Petters. They're all starting to stack up again, though. Josh Salvadori obviously doesn't have the ultimate pace of these drivers, because he finished a long way behind them in race number 1, but he's defending really well. Jamie Petters now to the inside of Lewis Stannard into Old Hall corner. Jordan Taylor positioning his car, trying to get up the inside. I should have tried to concentrate on the wide line in, the quick line out, but this might work anyway, because Stannard's going out wide. No, comes back onto the road into Jordan Taylor, and this time Taylor is done for properly into the barriers, and that was not the smartest rejoin, you'd have to say, from Lewis Stannard. I think he lost the rear of the car on the grass, probably didn't have a lot of control over where he was going, and Lewis Stannard unfortunately has, well, he's still not got going. Jordan Taylor has got going, but down in 8th place now, and you've got a feel for Jordan, haven't you, really? He's been involved in a couple of unfortunate incidents tonight, particularly in this second race, not really of his making. So Palmer here getting into the back of Charlie Constable and actually losing a place perhaps to Alexander Mostav. In fact, Mostav might go around the outside of both of them here into the island hairpin. Yes, he does. But now Constable goes back up the inside of him, nudges him out wide. So Palmer up the inside line again and reclaims both positions. So you can tell it's the reverse grid race, can't you? And a few drivers are perhaps a bit miffed at the way that their night has been going. Also a product, really, of racing around a circuit like Oulton Park, where it is just so narrow. And it's a challenging circuit as well. I know I'm biased. It is my local racetrack, Oulton Park, but I really do think it's one of the most challenging in the country. It's such an undulating, narrow and winding circuit, but actually a surprisingly high average speed. The island circuit that we're using tonight sort of slows things down a bit with the island hairpin, but the whole rest of the circuit is full commitment and very, very quick indeed, and so things can go wrong very easily around here, and the commitment you require means that when things do go wrong, it's very hard to get out of a situation, as we sort of just saw there. So Salvadori then holding on to 2nd position here, and Josh could be my pick maybe for driver of the round. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments, but Josh has one of the few drivers really not to get super involved in any silly bits of contact. He might be about to lose second though here to Jamie Petters, who's up the inside of him through Cascades corner, but we know the next corner is a right-hander at the island hairpin. And that should favour Josh Salvadori, hunting for his first podium of the season. He'd love it to be a second place finish as opposed to a third, but Jamie Petters is desperately late on the brakes around the outside line there. Salvadori runs him out of road. Well, no, leaves him just enough space. Needs to be careful not to do too much squeezing. That was judged pretty well. Josh Salvadori with, well, we are now on the final lap of the race. He is not giving this second place up, is he? Harley Connolly now part of the fight as well, looking to try and get himself back onto the podium as he did in this equivalent race a week ago. Down through the Hislop chicane, the order stays as it was. Kyle Felvis, by the way, 5th place, great recovery drive from him, with James Sherrington 6th place, and Sittler, Taylor, Crudson and Levine Kishore completing the top 10. So final lap of the race then. CJ Morgan looking likely to snap straight back at Jordan Taylor, who got that race win in pretty dominant fashion in race 1, but CJ Morgan, coming from the middle of the grid in this race, had quite a lot on his plate in the early laps, but he is going to come through to claim a race victory in the second race here, at Oulton Park. CJ Morgan claiming the race win for Chandler Motorsport, and second place I think is going to go to Josh Salvadori. Fantastic stuff there from Josh, really impressed with his performance in that race. Jamie Petters 3rd, Holly Connolly 4th, Kyle Felvis 5th, and that was James Sherrington and Luke Sittler angling past the line, 6th and 7th respectively. Jordan Taylor will be massively disappointed with 8th place. Will Crudson 9th though, he'll be pretty happy with the top 10. And Levine Kishore, after his early dramas, completes the top 10. 11th place then for Zach Palmer, 12th Alexander Mostav it should be, and then Charlie Constable, no, Nathan Jensen will be or 13th, because I think Charlie Constable might have run out of fuel coming out of the final corner. That car limping to the line. Now, it is uphill initially, but it starts now to drop downhill as you come across the grid hatchings, so might just creep there, and he should get there before Hayden Gray, I reckon, who is the best part of 20 seconds behind. Oh, here comes Hayden. Actually, this is going to be a close run thing for 14th place. Who gets to the timing line? It will be Hayden. So Hayden Gray beats Charlie Constable to 14th, and Charlie barely creeps across the line, having run out of fuel, presumably coming through the final corner. Well, lots of drama up and down the order, but it is CJ Morgan who claims the race victory in race number 2 here at Oulton Park. Josh Salvadori taking 2nd place, and that is his by far best finish of the season so far. And Jamie Petters in 3rd. He's had a race win, hasn't he? Had that race win at Donington Park, did Jamie Petters, but that was his only other appearance on the podium. So some pretty good feel-good stories to come out of that second race. And yeah, that was a unfortunate couple of incidents that befell a couple of drivers in that one. But CJ, unlike in race 1, managed to skirt around the problems. And CJ Morgan then pulls into pit lane. Hopefully very shortly we'll be able to have a chat with our race winner, who has quite a few stories to tell, I'd imagine, not just about race number 2, but from the opening race of the evening as well. And CJ does now join us in the commentary box, and CJ, congratulations on that race win. We'll get to the good stuff in a moment, but I do need to just take you back to race 1 very briefly. We've heard from Jordan Taylor about the tangle that you guys had. Really unfortunate that you ended up off at the barriers there. What was your perspective of that?
I don't know. It's not really my place to judge. That's the steward's decision. In my eyes, I feel like I was going in a straight line and I got a tap. But at the end of the day, we'll see what the stewards decide of it, and whatever the outcome of that is, I doubt it will affect me in the race because Jordan was quite far ahead. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but I managed to fight my way back through to 5th, which was good. So damage limitation, really.
Absolutely, and put all of that behind you then for race 2, like the pro that we know you are, because that was not an easy race either, actually. Like you say, you gained all of that ground in race 1, which was great. It was more points, but it meant that you then gave yourself even more work to do on the reversed grid. Talk us through what your perspective of those opening laps was, because it looked pretty hectic to me.
It was very hectic, and there were a couple moments where I thought that I was going to be collected, but I just missed it. it's just about really with the reverse grid. It's all about avoiding incidents. That's the key bit. And then I think at the end of lap 1, I found myself 4th or 5th already. So that was good. And then just slowly worked my way through. And then I was just catching up to Josh as the safety car came out. And then Josh got a blinder of a restart, and then it sent me back about 2 laps. But I managed to get it, pulled a gap. They were fighting behind me, and then just kept it consistent.
And that means more good points for the championship. I think you'll probably come out of tonight with either the same sort of points as Jordan scored. Perhaps you've even increased the gap slightly. How are you feeling about Snetterton next time out, though? A very different kind of track. Are you confident you'll be up there on the podium again then?
Hopefully. It is a very different type of track, but this track at Oulton, once again, same as Croft, I had no time to practice because I've been at college and work since last Friday. So I got home at about 11 o'clock last night, hopped on the sim, and I've done a lot better than I could have asked for, really. So that's a positive, but I've got a lot of time this week now to practice for Snetterton, so hopefully I'll be back up the front again.
Excellent stuff. Well, CJ, a brilliant performance again all night long, as we've come to expect from you, and I'm sure we'll see more of the same next week. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
CJ Morgan then getting the race victory after a trying start to the night, but things improving nicely as the evening went on. Now, though, to a very impressive runner in that second race of the night. Josh Salvadori, his first appearance on the podium with us this season long, and it looked for a while like it might have been a race victory, but Josh, you've got to be satisfied with that second place. You really well deserved as well, because that was a brilliant defensive drive. Josh is muted in the Discord chat, so if Josh can hear me, just needs to unmute himself, because we'd love to hear, Josh, about what was a brilliant second race of the evening for you. And Josh is still muted, unfortunately. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to say. We'll give him one more crack at this, and then we'll move on to our third place driver, maybe try and get Josh on the line a little bit later. Josh, are you there? I'll take that as a no. So we'll try and get Josh in a moment or two, because, as I said, I'd love to hear from him. He had a fantastic second race there, and actually was pretty pacey in race 1 as well. Whilst we're trying to get Josh on the line, let's move along to our third place finisher then, Jamie Petters, who, there we go, has unmuted himself. Well done, Jamie. Congratulations on third place. That was intense out there, wasn't it? Did you enjoy yourself? This is going well, isn't it? So Jamie has unmuted himself in Discord, but we can't hear him. Jamie, are you there? Do you know, they say teenagers are supposed to be really tech-savvy, and this should be a breeze for them. Jamie's gone altogether now. I'll try and get him back. Right, I'm going to have one last shot at trying to get Josh on the line. Josh, can you hear us? Okay. He can't. Right, in that case, we'll forget about interviews for the time being. What I can tell you, and I was hoping this would be a nice moment where we were chatting to him, Josh Salvadori, as well as getting his first podium of the season, it has also been decided is the driver of the round. So a pair of FreeM sim racing gloves heading the way of Josh, and perhaps we can try and have a chat with him early next week, maybe, if we can, because that was a fantastic performance from him. I can see Jamie Petters has jumped back into the commentary box. Jamie, can we hear you now?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Jamie. Congratulations on fixing the audio issues and on the podium. That was a pretty intense race.
Yes, that was a very hectic race, especially, well, straight from the get-go, with a lot of cars everywhere for the first few laps, so I did well to needle it through.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of particularly interesting moments. Obviously, you and Jordan had a pretty good battle there for a little while. I need a little bit of contact down at Cascades, but when you're all so close together around such a narrow circuit as Oulton Park, it takes a lot of skill just to stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, it was very difficult, and he got sideways in front of me. I didn't quite have time to react and get off the throttle before I made contact with him, so that was a shame.
Nice to have you back on the podium, though. As I was saying in the first race to Zach, it's been a long while since we had you on the podium. A little bit of inconsistency maybe mid-season, but this is a nice time now to be picking up the pace and getting these podium finishes. How confident are you that perhaps some more podiums could be yours before the season's over?
Well, I'd like to think it's possible, but we'll have to wait and see at Snetterton then.
Yes, Snetterton, as I was saying to CJ earlier on, a very different kind of track. Is it one that you have much experience of?
I've done quite a lot of practice in real life and racing in real life in the JSCC, so I'd say I've got a fair bit of experience there, with it being like my local track.
It's your local track as well. Oh, well, there we go. So now you see you've set yourself up now. We've got high expectations of you at Snetterton in a week's time. I'm sure we'll see you back towards the pointy end again. But Jamie, thank you for sticking around and having a chat with us, and well done again on that podium finish.
Yeah, thank you.
So there we go. Most of our podium finishers heard from in the end. We persevered and we got there in the end. And hopefully we will get a chance to speak to Josh Salvadori at some point before the season is over. And remember that Josh was the driver of the round as well. So gets the pair of sim racing gloves for his efforts tonight. Now, the big prizes that will be awarded in a couple of weeks' time for top 3 in the championship. This is how the story looks as far as the championship standings are concerned. And CJ Morgan, I think I'm right in saying, has extended his championship lead. It was about 27 or so coming into tonight. It now sits at 30 points. If you'd have told him that this would be how the points table would look when he was backwards into the barriers in race 1, I think he'd have been very happy with that. Jordan Taylor now looking more secure, at least, in second position. He's 23 points ahead of Riley Bishop, who is third, and that is one of the real close battles. Riley Bishop third, Alexander Mostav in fourth, just 3 points in it, and £100 on the line as well, remember, for finishing third in the championship. So that's going to be a really tasty one to watch over the remainder of the season. And if Harley Connolly can keep on notching up the top 5 finishes, he could still become a part of that battle as well. Then it's Lewis Stannard sort of quietly going about his business in 6th. Lavine Kishore gaining some ground tonight into 7th. Likewise, Nathan Jensen 8th, ahead of Luke Sintler and Jamie Petters, who, having got on the podium there, moves back into the top 10 at the expense of Zach Palmer, who was on the podium in race 1. Really, those penalty points hurting Zach. Then James Sherrington, Will Croods and Josh Salvadori. Second place, his best finish of the season, and it moves him into 14th place in the championship standings. Then it was Jensen Bell, and then it was Charlie Constable. Carl Felvers, of course, that's the other point. So these points will change a little bit because Carl Felvers post-event will be deleted from the race results. So that points table may change slightly before the beginning of the broadcast in a week's time, but we'll keep you posted on that. Gabriel Dahl-Parfait may gain some ground, so too Hayden Gray, who at the moment is one of the last of the point scorers. So, exciting stuff then here at Oulton Park, as we sort of expected it would be. We head next to the Snetterton 300 circuit, which, as I've said, is a very different kind of track. Long straights, wide open spaces, but that tight and technical infield section, since we're on the full 300 circuit, that is going to provide lots of good side-by-side racing opportunities, I'm sure, and the entirety of the Thruxton circuit is made for side-by-side racing as well, and that will be the host venue for our final round of the championship on the 6th of April, where CJ Morgan will be hoping that he will be crowned champion, but I'm sure that Jordan Taylor still has a few things to say about that. You won't want to miss those final 2 rounds of the championship. CJ Morgan in comfortable form at the moment, but Jordan Taylor has proven that he is capable of taking the fight to him. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight here. I hope you've enjoyed the racing from Oulton Park. Once again, a big thanks to everyone whose name is on the screen right now for helping to put these events together. I've been Andy McEwen. I hope you've enjoyed the action. We'll see you again in a week's time for the penultimate time of the penultimate round even of the Junior Saloon Car Championships official eSeries here on Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. For now though, from everyone here, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.